2 weeks from this exact moment, 14 days from now, tens of millions of Americans will be voting. They will choose the 47th president of the United States. The race is razor close. This is the warning. Poll after poll after poll show that this election is deadlocked. It is dead even in the swing states. Both candidates, though, have a very different approach to the election. Here's Vice President Harris talking about the issues that Donald Trump accuses her of never talking about.
Is there a policy that stands out to you in particular, either?
Sure. I mean, my approach to what we need to do around Medicare covering home health care, born out of my experience of taking care of my mother. My priority on housing, one, because I know what it means, affordable housing and the ability to buy a home. Again, my own experience, my mother saved up, and not until I was a teenager was she able to do it. But also I know that for so many young people who I speak with around our country, the American dream is just really out of reach. So my policy about $25,000 down payment assistance to help them get their foot in the door.
And here's Donald Trump making clear his vision for the American educational system.
No transgender, no operations. You know, they take your kid. There are some places, your boy leaves the school, comes back, a girl, okay? Without parental consent. What is that all about? That's when they talk about a threat to democracy, they're a threat. Could you imagine, without parental consent? At first, when I was told that was actually happening, I said, you know, it's an exaggeration. No, it happens. It happens. There are areas where it happens.
And for the record, that's not happening. It's not happening at all. There are no children who are being kidnapped by their first period teacher who's passing them off to gender transition surgery by recess and home, a girl by the end of the day. It is ludicrous. But Donald Trump is campaigning on this issue. In 2024, when there is war in Europe, there is war in the Middle East, there is an aggressive, assertive China. This is Donald Trump's campaign. Let's watch.
And we will proudly say Merry Christmas again.
Here's the crowd cheering when Donald Trump talks about the suspension of a broadcast license for CBS News.
How about 60 Minutes, the way they protected Kamala? She gave an answer. Think of it. 60 Minutes, CBS, and they ought to lose their license and they ought to take it off the air.
Oh, and here's Donald Trump in Pennsylvania talking about one of the most important issues to 21st century America, the substantial girth of Hall of Fame golfer Arnold Palmer.
This man was strong and tough, and I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I had to say it.
And yet, the people cheer. Half the country, according to the polls, is for this guy, America's favorite short order fry cook, the Donald. Where's the hairnet, by the way? At any rate, each day, Donald Trump plays the American media, which he has done perfectly, beautifully, for 10 years. He waves the cape. Whatever the outrage of the day, it gets covered, and people laugh at it. Whether it's a crude or cruel joke at the Al Smith dinner in front of dozens of Catholic priests and clergy.
Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't it look glum? It looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
Or whether it's talking about making America healthy again.
Bobby Kennedy, right? Everybody likes Bobby Kennedy. And he's so big into the health food and women, things, everything. He wants to do things in the environment.
This campaign now exists on two planes. Trump goes out and does something completely outlandish, and everybody chases it while he delivers the threat on the downbeat. He'll take away the broadcast license. He'll imprison his opponents. And once again, Donald Trump makes clear in North Carolina that there's cheating in the election that in fact doesn't exist.
He'll stop the cheating.
He's going to stop the cheating. How are you doing? Are they cheating, Michael? They're trying, but are they? They're not going to get away with it, right?
Donald Trump is laying the groundwork so that if he loses the election, he will start claiming on that night that it was stolen. But nobody talked about American elections being corrupt, American elections being stolen until Donald Trump lost one, or thought he was going to lose one, or maybe more precisely, might lose, because that thought's impossible for Donald Trump. His ego, his broken, disordered personality won't allow it. And so the entire cornerstone of our civilization, our way of life, is threatened by this brittle, broken, hollow man who can't stand the idea that the American people are sovereign and may decide, like they did, to fire him. But when it was Jimmy Carter versus Gerald Ford, or Ronald Reagan versus Jimmy Carter, or Bill Clinton versus George Bush, or Barack Obama versus Hillary Clinton, or John McCain, the truth of the matter is there is no country in the world that has cleaner or fairer elections than the United States. Period. But Donald Trump has upended that with the forcefulness of lying. The idea that if you repeat it over and over and over again, it becomes true. Like the notion that Donald Trump's first 4 years were a successful presidency, not a time of abject chaos. This notion that he performed competently or ably during COVID. The truth is, the mayhem that he produced cost hundreds of thousands of Americans their lives unnecessarily. He's unfit. He's unprepared. And yet, half the country seems willing to go another round.
Thank you very much.
When you see that many Americans cheering for un-American exclamations, I'll shut down the media. I'll lock up my opponents. I'll harm people because they are against me. The smallness that you're seeing, the brittleness that you're seeing, all of it together shouldn't mask the promise that's being made. When Donald Trump takes the stage and he makes an outlandish statement, that's not a promise. When Donald Trump, after he makes the outlandish statement, says he'll lock up a political opponent, that's a promise. The media covers the outlandish statement, but never the promise. The promise is all that matters. The American way of life is all that matters in this election. And the person who is defending it is the vice president. It's Kamala Harris. Now, 15 million Americans have already voted. 2 weeks from now, millions and millions and millions more will have already done so. And then the flood will come. And sometime in the evening on the East Coast, the votes, they will be counted. And the states will start to report their findings. And we'll know how it's shaping up. 2 weeks to go. One candidate is talking about America's future. Another candidate is talking about Haitians eating dogs, about children kidnapped by their teachers for sexual reassignment surgery. It's all madness. And yet, a lot of people seem deeply attracted to it. They look at Democrats and they look at Republicans and they see somehow an equivalence that I don't understand. But what we will all share together after this election is the consequence of it. And if Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States, we'll have the consequences of a choice and reports of the catastrophe that unfolds from it. Catastrophe is what lies ahead if this man becomes president. Again, listen to him closely. Listen to him carefully. The threat he's making, it's against you. It's against us. Are you really going to be fooled by a man who's lied to you more times than any person has ever lied to his fellow countrymen in our history? Reject this man. He's vile, he's indecent, and deeply, deeply dangerous for the future of this country. This is The Warning. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.